In high seas or calm, both opportunity and risk lurk just below the surface. Answers require in-depth analysis. Welcome to BlackFin Group's Shark Cage podcast, where experts dip below the surface of important industry issues in search of hidden opportunities.
Hello, and welcome to the Shark Cage. I am your host, April Ball, here with my co-host, Rick Grant.
Hey, April, how you doing? It's great seeing you today. What do we have on tap?
Recently, credit union executives from around the country came together at the ACUMA LiveWire25 conference. BlackFin Group CEO Kemph was on hand and delivered a keynote speech at the event. Kemph joins us today in the Shark Cage to discuss it. Welcome to the show, Kemph.
Hey, great to be here. Good to see you guys.
Kemph, can you tell us a little bit about this year's Akuma Conference?
Yeah, sure thing, April. So first of all, for those who don't know, I should highlight that ACUMA is the premier education and networking association, really for the mortgage departments at credit unions. If you're a credit union and your mortgage group isn't a member, I highly recommend you look into it. The value that is provided by the ACUMA Association is just unparalleled in the mortgage industry. So, but as it relates to this year's ACUMA conference, because COVID, it quickly became obvious once you got your feet on the ground was that folks were anxious to get in a room, and as validated by the over 350 attendees, you could just feel this elevated energy while people were also trying to shake off some of the cobwebs of saying hi, introducing themselves, discussing their business. And so everyone seemed to get a little bit of a chuckle out of that after this post-COVID isolation, if you will. But in the end, it was just absolutely obvious. People were craving the opportunity to really break bread and discuss the mortgage markets and strategies and opportunities within their industry with all their colleagues. So really was an absolutely great event. And I was honored to be invited as a keynote speaker. So it's really just a great group of folks. If you haven't been there and you aren't a member, I strongly encourage it.
Now, Kemph, I've already seen a little bit of the early feedback from the event, and I know that your keynote was very well received. You spoke about making the right call at the right time. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, good question, Rick. Over the last 18 months, our industry was called on to make some pretty snap decisions in order to effectively keep moving our economy forward and continue servicing our country to meet the record demand of homeownership. So I opened the speech with a couple of anecdotes about stories when I was on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, getting a firsthand tour with a veteran trader. And then when I was later at Angel Stadium in Anaheim, California, in the Major League Baseball umpires locker room. And I was basically making the correlation about the hardest part of their job is making the right decision at the right time. And no different from mortgage bankers, our industry is continuously called on to make the right decisions at the right time. And like my friend Mitch on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, if he made the right decision at the right time, he could make his company millions. But if he made the wrong call at the wrong time, he could lose his company millions. No different with mortgage bankers. And as our industry really starts to transition with volumes downshifting, margins thinning, moving from purchase to refi, a lot of things ahead of us in the next 6 to 12 months. And we've got to make sure that we're starting to make the right call at the right time. Over the next 60 to 90 days is really going to be critical to setting the stage for a very successful or challenging 2022, just depending on the kinds of decisions that you're making going into the end of the year here.
Kemph, in your keynote address, and you kind of just hinted on it, you talked about a 3-step plan for preparing your team for 2022. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure thing. So it really comes down, first, we as mortgage bankers must transition our paradigm from volume to the one true metric that actually matters, which is productivity. Back in my retail loan production days, when I was loan officer, regional manager, sales manager, et cetera, I could always make bad decisions around technology, around hires, around different aspects of my business. And I could always cover it up by going out and just getting new volume. That was always short term. That really wasn't a long term perspective as it relates to really driving true success within my organization. And as I've matured my thinking, I've come to understand that it really comes down to the criticality of focusing on productivity. So the first step is organizations really need to change their paradigm and stop focusing on volume, but start focusing on productivity. The second step in my recommendation was really to provide that organizations over the next 60, 90 days, they really need to be taking a look at an in-depth look at their organization. Now, I'm encouraging them to do a full-scale end-to-end review. We at BlackFin, we have over 1,300 line items in our end-to-end business review checklist to help ensure that lenders are operating more efficiently and effectively. And I try to encourage organizations to find the niche within their organization, that trader who really analyzes data, analyzes all sides of the industry and organization, to find those 34 or 50 things that need to be fixed or focused on over the next couple months so that you can really optimize your 2022 performance. Some things that come to mind in that, in that review is, and I will say, I often get the question, what are the one or two things we should be focused on over the next 3, 6, 9 months, Keith? And I always say, there is no silver bullet. It's the 34 to 50 things that you're focused on all the time. That's what's important. And that's what makes this industry and what we do so hard. So as you're doing that business review here toward the end of the year, I highly encourage you to think about cross-training. What would it mean to your organization if everybody in your organization understood all the roles of everybody else? How much more productivity would you get out of your organization if your processors thinking from the getting cross-trained as an underwriter? Technology optimization, that's a big one for our organization. We're very ingrained in mortgage optimization with lenders. What would it mean if you increased your feature and functionality of your LOS just a little bit? I estimate in this industry that lenders are only using about 60% of their actual LOS. What's it mean if you get another 10 or 15% productivity out of your system? More efficiency, reduce your costs. Remote online notarization. Here's a fast fact that a lot of people didn't know when I was speaking at the Akuma Conference is a lot of people don't realize Oregon was the 36th state to approve online notarization. So if your organization is doing work in closing loans in Oregon, have you designed, built, and implemented your strategy, your process, your procedures, your policies, so that you could take advantage of that productivity feature? We have to be more cognizant of what's happening in our business as well as what's happening around us so that we can really optimize. Product mix. Lenders really need to start thinking about having a more diversified product mix, not just so they can get more volume, but because they have to diversify their income. That's going to be a critical component going into 2022. So those are just a few, ideas and thoughts that should be coming to mind as you go through a business review at your organization. But the last step in this 3-step process that I recommend is prioritize. After you've come up with those, 300 line items in your full end-to-end business review, then go through and prioritize them, estimate some kind of ROI out of the main line items to say, we really need to focus on these. And then go to your executive team, because it's all about execution. You can come up with all these findings, but now you've got to execute, because if you don't execute, you're going to be in the same position you're in today. And your productivity isn't going to increase, and you're going to have some more challenges. So I always recommend find the 4 things that you want to go to your executive team with and say, hey, listen, these are because your executive team is always going to want to say no to something. So ask for 4, get your 3, and move forward and execute on those 3 things that you say we have to close the gaps on based on this full end-to-end business review. Subsequently, if you execute on those 3 things over the next couple of months, then you can go back and ask for another 4 things that you want to fix within your organization. You got to do this before you start getting downsized in resources as product volumes change. And margins get a little thinner. So you've got to start proving that you can make progress and continuous improvement, increase your productivity between now and first quarter of next year in order to really have a great 2022. So those are my recommendations for a 3-step process and plan for going into the end of the year and really being able to have a great 2022. So.
We've been visiting today with BlackFin Group CEO Keith Kemph. Keith, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, thank you for having me. Great to see you guys.
Thank you for joining us in the Shark Cage. Join us next time as we continue to deliver strategy, technology, process, and people. Until then.
Thank you for joining us in the Shark Cage. To be a guest on a future episode, send an email to info@blackfin-group.com. The Shark Cage is produced by Content Beacon. To find out more about the show or the information provided in this episode, visit BlackFin Group online at www.blackfin-group.com.